Now, if you take a golf ball and you throw it on the ground today to any reasonable adult, and you give them a club that has loft like this, their conclusion will be the same. No, a brand new golfer, never seen a golf ball, never seen a golf club, bring them here, put a ball on the ground, give them this club, and say, what do you think you should do with that? Well, it's pretty simple. I got to slide this sharp edge here underneath the South Pole and get it off the ground. And if I want to hit it in that direction, I pretty much have to keep the face looking at the target the whole time I do that. It's just pretty obvious. So here's another one of those common sense things that's wrong, you see? Just like we talked about the earlier part, about how understanding that this tool wasn't designed to hit the South Pole. As a matter of fact, if you have the club hit the equator, you'll find that the South Pole down here actually rolls away from the leading edge when it rolls up the face. It actually goes away. You can't get to the South Pole with the leading edge. It won't work. So your job then is, if I were to put lines on this thing, is line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up from the bottom, is to have line 5 at the equator and drive the ball forward. And if you do that, and that's a very specific task I've given you. Line 5, equator. If you do that and you drive the ball forward, it will go up every time. It can't do anything else. It can't. So now I know that the part of the ball that I have to hit isn't the South Pole, it's the equator. Well, that's a very big difference, isn't it? And it's very interesting, because if we take any kind of a look at a golf ball in a rather larger size, if I were to take the golf ball and blow it up to this size, and I made this the center of the ball, this piece of metal right there, that's the center of the ball. If I want to move the center of the ball, or I have to move the ball from here to somewhere, I have to move the center of the ball. I have to put enough energy through the center of the ball to make it go somewhere. If I don't move the center of the ball, it doesn't get there. So if I have it hanging out in space, relatively still, if I have it relatively still in space, and I have a vertical club face and a horizontal hit, then all the energy, or all the momentum, would transfer right through the middle of the ball, and off it would go toward Neptune or wherever it's going to go. If I hit it horizontally with a lofted surface like this, it will hit slightly below that center part, and now the center of the ball, when it rolls up the face, doesn't want to go forward anymore, does it? As I hit it forward, it wants to go up. The center of the ball wants to go up. It wants to go up. I want it to go forward. I don't want it to go up. I want it to go there. If I want to hit the ball a long distance with a club, I don't want it to go there. I need to have some energy pressed through the ball to make it go that way. So every time you think about a golf club hitting the ball and adding loft to get down to the South Pole, look at what happens to the energy transfer the middle of the ball. The ball goes up. It doesn't go forward. And I haven't met anyone yet that doesn't think they don't hit it far enough. I just need a little. I just need like 10 more. That's all. Yeah. All right, maybe 15. Okay, 50. I need 50 yards. That's all I need. Another 50, 60 yards would be good. Then I'd really be a player. I could really play. If I could hit 70 yards farther, it'd be good. If I could get 110 more onto my tee shots, I could really. And it just goes that way. So understanding, if you want to hit it farther, why would you keep doing things with your tool to make the ball go up more? You have to apply pressure to the middle of the ball to make it go forward. And your golf club is designed to make it go up. So if you succeed, if you were to succeed in taking the club and making the ball go up like this by adding loft to the club as you hit it, if you succeeded in doing that, who's going to hit it forward for you? You got nobody. There's nobody there to move that thing. Okay, let's reverse it. Let's say you're going to provide 100% of the forward impetus to the ball. You're not going to provide 70% of the forward and 30% of the upwardness to the ball. You're going to provide all of the energy to the forward motion of the ball. Well, if you do that, who's going to hit it up in the air for you? The club face. It's designed 800 years ago. The guy went, put loft on it, bang, zoom, it goes up. Let me think about this. If I use the tool the right way, I get a great result. That's what tools are for. We don't use tools to make it harder to do something. If it makes it harder to do something with a tool, get rid of the tool and go back to using your hand to do it, whatever it was that you were doing. On the other hand, If the tool makes it easier, oh, let's embrace it. Let's use it the way it's designed to be used instead of the way we think it's designed to be used. And then we can take the tool and make use of it, make the ball go where we want it to go. So it's our job as the player to drive the ball forward. Club's job is to hit it up. That's a good partnership. That is a great partnership. If you think at any time that it's your job to hit under and make the ball go up, well, there are some special lob shots that you can hit over a period of years that you learn to do. But if you're going to hit the ball forward somewhere with the remainder of all your shots, you got to hit it forward. Forward, not up, forward. Your job, hit it forward. Club's job, hit it up. Okay, clear? We know that. So your job is to hit the equator of the ball all the time with every club. Doesn't matter which one. Lob wedge, driver, 6-iron, doesn't matter. Take the club, drive the club against the equator of the ball, drive it forward. The loft, the residual loft on it makes it go up. Now I say residual because it's a very important concept. When you use the golf club to hit the ball, it always has loft on it. And what we know about golf balls and how they fly, very important is to that issue, is that when you hit a golf ball, it spins. It spins. It spins around a single axis. It spins around a single axis. If I have it as a golf ball, it looks like this with a spin axis. Okay? So when I hit it with that lofted surface, it's going to spin. And when it spins, it's going to spin around a single axis. And that single axis, or the orientation of that axis, has everything to do with how the ball flies. If you're a pitcher, if you're a baseball player and you've been a pitcher, or you've been an infielder, an outfielder, a catcher, any position on the field, you've had to throw the ball, and if you threw it with some speed, wherever the tilt of the spin is, that's how it flies through the air, doesn't it? You control the tennis ball with spin. You control the ping pong ball with spin. You control a golf ball with spin. Now, to give you an idea of how much a golf ball spins, when I hit my driver, I get 3,000 RPM of backspin from a driver. That's 50 revolutions per second. 1001, it just went around 50 times. It's an enormous amount of rotational energy. When it spins like that, the dimples gather the atmosphere touching the ball around itself like this, and it creates a boundary layer of air that spins around the ball the same speed as the ball spinning. Now, the neat part about that is that when it moves through the air mass, going toward the target, spinning like this, what happens is the air touching the top half of the ball finds the boundary layer moving in that direction at 50 revs per second, and it gets pulled over the top of the ball, just like that. And if you could think of it as pizza dough that you stretched, you stretch it and it gets thinner over the top of the ball in a sense, and it creates a low pressure cell. Daniel Bernoulli said, the faster the fluid moves, the lower the pressure. And so in this case, that fluid is the air going over the top, and it increases in speed and creates a low pressure cell. On the bottom of the ball, this boundary layer of air is running forward. Think of all those little molecules of air as particles of sand, coming in this direction from the ball, coming in this direction from the air mass, and we get a collision of those little molecules down here, and they scrunch together and create a high density, high pressure cell right there. And the neat part is that it's always perpendicular. That high pressure cell is perpendicular to the spin axis. So we have a low pressure cell on top, a high pressure cell here, and we get lift, just like the wing of an airplane. But it's from a symmetrical object rather than an asymmetrical object like the wing of an airplane. And the reason it works is because of the boundary layer of air. It has to be there. That's why we have dimples. So now we have a golf ball moving through space this way. The spin axis, if it's horizontal, has a vertical lift component to it, because it's always at 90 degrees to the spin axis. In gravity, and in all disputes concerning gravity, gravity wins. And it reminds me of a story about 3 guys in a hotel room on the 30th floor. And the one guy says, you know, the updrafts on this building are so enormous that I could step out the window, it would cushion me down a little bit and bring me right back up into the window, and I could walk back into the building. He said, no way. I said, oh yeah, I'm telling you. So he goes over to the window, steps out the window, goes down a little bit, comes back up, steps in the window. And one guy said, wow, that must be a rush. I got to try that. And he steps out the window and goes 30 floors straight down, dead. And the guy, the third guy in the room who didn't do any of this, looked at the first guy and said, "Superman, you always were a jerk." So, Superman notwithstanding, gravity wins, okay? It's the only thing it doesn't affect is Superman. So, gravity wins all these battles. So, gravity is always constant. It's vertical, and we now have a golf ball who's got a vertical lift component, so it keeps it in the air, and it goes straight. What happens if the spin axis is tilted this way as it goes away from you toward me? Now, because the spin axis is tilted this way, now I have the push or the lift factor over here. It's going to push it in that direction. And in fact, if this were an airplane and those were two wings and they were tilted this way, you would certainly expect the aircraft to do this, wouldn't you? For the same reason, because the lift factor is right angles to the wing surface. So now when they're tilted this way, it's pushing it. This is what a slice looks like for a right-hander. This is what a hook looks like for a right-hander. And that brings us to the idea of what is it about the golf club that I can do to make this happen? Well, one of the most important ones is that you got to have the right lie angle in your golf club for whoever you are. And the reason, again, comes back to geometry. It has nothing to do with golf swings. It has nothing to do with anything except the geometry at impact. Because if I hit the ball with a square club face, the ball doesn't have enough brains to decide to roll diagonally up the face. It doesn't know any better. It only responds to the biggest angle that's touching it. In this case, it's the loft plane of the club. And so the ball will always, if I hit it with a square face, will always roll up the face perpendicular to the toe-heel axis of the loft plane, which means the spin axis is parallel to that. Which means that if I have a golf club whose lie angle is correct for me, then I can hit it with a square face and get a straight shot that comes out of there. But if I have a golf club whose lie angle is too upright for me, which means the toe would be up in the air and the heel would be down at that moment, look what happens to the spin axis when I hit it with a square club face. All of a sudden, I've done everything right, squared the club face, and I just hit a hook. Actually, I hit a pull hook. One that starts a little bit left and then hooks further left. No redeeming qualities in this at all, none. The next thing it could be is too flat for me. If the toe is down, the ball's going to start to the right and then it's going to slice. I don't suppose any of you ever run across those where you hit those shots that go right and have... Well, look at what happens. I don't know one teacher in the last 34 years of teaching who isn't trying to get the student to square the club face at impact with the least amount of effort. That squaring the club face at impact is the final goal of everyone. Well, if you square the club face at impact and your lie angle's wrong, you're not going to get a straight shot. And how would you know if you squared the club face or not? It might have felt really good, and you thought, well, that was a good, ooh, it hooked. Well, that was a good, ooh, that hooked. Or you have it in this condition, you hit it, go, ooh, I hit that well, oh, it's off to the right, there's my slice. So if you're going to use the golf club to square the face to hit the ball where you want it to go, it has to fit you in this lie angle issue. It has to. You don't really have a choice if you want to learn how to do this well. Lie angles are not a function that you have to deal with or an issue you have to deal with ping pong paddles and tennis rackets. You don't have to worry about those things because you manipulate the face to your benefit. But a golf club, because it has a lofted surface here, has a certain orientation based on how the shaft has been designed to come into the club head. And because that's a fixed issue, you may have a set of clubs where some of the clubs are too flat, and when you hit them well, you slice them. And some of the clubs are too upright, and when you hit them, you hook them. And some of them might be just right, and you hit it, you say, wow, I really love this club. It's really good. I like my 7 or whatever it is. The problem is, even if you had all of your clubs the same number of degrees too flat, let's say they're 3 degrees too flat. When you square the club face with a 3-iron, it won't go as far right and slice as far right as it does with a 9-iron that has more loft, toe is down, now it really goes off to the right. And so you're going to have to close the face of your 9-iron more severely than even the 8-iron, and the 8-iron more severely than even the 7. And the 7, that's if they're all exactly the same amount. Now, you can absolutely tell somebody how their golf game is by checking their lie angle when you're on the tee. And if I find somebody that has a set of golf clubs that are toe down when they're playing, I know that they probably hit their short irons very far, don't hit their 3-iron nearly as far, and have a problem duck hooking or blocking with their drivers. On the other hand, if somebody has irons where the short irons are very upright, I know they can't hit their short irons very far, because if they squared the face, they're going to pull it left. So they have to hit it with the face wide open just to make it go straight at the target. When they have it wide open, it's got more loft. They can't release the face and hit a little home run. So now they have to hit a check swing, open face, short iron. And that same person may be a very long hitter with the driver, because they now have an open face approach to the ball, but they can go ahead and release it with the driver, and they hit these massive shots, and they don't ever have to worry about hooking it. So you can really tell, and people have said to me, how do you know that? You've never seen me play. I said, well, there's nothing else you can do. I mean, this is the way it works. It's about the geometry. Do the math. This is the way it is. And it's not my choice, and it's not your choice. It's just the way it is. So getting clubs that have the right lie angle and making sure you have that done. And I would urge all of you, make sure that your kids have that attended to as they grow, all the way through their teen years until they've stopped growing. It's really important that you do that. So now let's move on. We now know that for every golf ball, you're going to hit it on the equator. You're going to do it with golf clubs that have the right lie angle now, are you not? You're going to do that. That's no problem. Well, the other interesting thing that occurs now is we get to take another look at the golf club and how it's designed to be used a little more in a little more sophisticated way. There are two things that the best players in the world do with their golf clubs that we know, that I've measured, personally measured, and know these numbers. And that is, with their irons, they de-loft the club about 8 degrees at impact. What does that mean? It means that if I take the handle and it's even with the club head, my club head has a certain loft angle there. If I lean this club forward 8 degrees, I will have de-lofted the club 8 degrees. Well, I'm not. And as I de-loft the face into the ball, I'm actually moving the face up toward the equator more, am I not? I'm moving it away from the South Pole and more toward the equator. So now I know that everybody that hits good golf shots with their irons, and I'm talking about powerful shots that they don't have to work hard to do, powerful shots that they can hit with ease. One of the things they do well is they lean the face forward as they hit it. The second thing we know is they use the toe of the club and rotate it around the heel at the rate of about 2.5 degrees for every inch it moves forward. Now, what does that mean in terms of real numbers and distances? Well, if you have a 12-inch span where the heel of the club is moving 12 inches through the impact zone, 6 inches before the center of the ball to 6 inches past the center of the ball, that's a 12-inch span. If the face is rotating at 2.5 degrees for every inch, all you have to do is multiply 12 inches by 2.5 and you get 30 degrees. That's a 30-degree rotation of the club face through the hitting zone. That means 6 inches from the ball, the club is 15 degrees open, it squares up about where the middle of the ball is, and it gets to be 15 degrees closed about 6 inches past the ball. It's what happens with the club face in every good player's technique when they use the golf club. Now, here's where the same old business of common sense gets in the way. Common sense would tell us, and every one of us, that if I keep the face looking at the target, I'll hit the ball straighter. Why would I want to rotate the face? Well, if I only knew that every good player in the history of golf that hits it longest and straightest does this, it would be enough information to say, I maybe want to try that. Maybe that's a good thing. Even though that reasonable part of your brain back there is saying to you, no, no, keep the face looking at the target. Don't let the toe pass the heel. It's got to be square for 12 inches through there. Doesn't have to be square for 12 inches. It doesn't have to be square for an inch, quite honestly, because it isn't. But what we have is the ability to understand the anticipated moment of impact and time the home run. And I'll tell you what I mean by a home run. Years ago, I worked at Bowling Green State University. I was the golf coach there, and one of my colleagues was the baseball coach. And I played golf with him one day, and I said, you know, if you played a little more, you'd be a little better, you know, this golf game, you're an athlete. He said, "No, I've been a good athlete, every sport I ever played I was good at, and I am not going to get hooked on golf." So why not? Well, I've enjoyed being a good athlete, and I don't understand golf, I'll admit. And if I got hooked on golf and I was terrible at it, I don't think I could take that. I said, well, I think the problem you have is that you believe that this shaft here represents the bat when you play golf. It's the bat. He said, well, yeah. And that the club head is stuck in the end of the bat, and that if you throw the head of the bat to get some bat speed down here and keep the club face looking at the target as long as you can, that will give you distance and trajectory and accuracy. He said, yeah, what's your point? I said, well, the point is this. In golf, the bat is not the shaft. The bat is the club head. The bat is the club head. The shaft is merely a carrier that carries the bat into position so that I can hit one of three kinds of shots, and that is a home run, a check swing, or a bunt. Those are the three things that a bat can do. I can hit a home run, I can hit a check swing, or I can hit a bunt. I don't have any other choices. And if I understand that my golf club in the face area is the bat, I can learn to use the bat to hit home runs, hit them to right field, hit them to left field, hit them up the middle, and it's my choice when I do that. It isn't my golf swing's choice. I decide when I use the bat. I decide when I'm going to make the bat go to right field. I decide whether I'm going to put extra spin on the ball to hook it up the right field line and keep it in play. I can do that. And so now the rules of batting are the same whether the bat is this big or this big. The rules about how to use the bat are the same. So if I take a bat and I use it this way, I can hit a home run with that little bat. The shaft becomes the carrier which carries the bat into position, so I can use the bat to hit my home run or a check swing. And in truth, in golf, the check swing is a functional technique for putting and chipping. But it really isn't worth anything at all beyond that. Even your pitch shots need to be hit with a gentle home run motion so that you can hit the ball the right distance without as much effort. Your tee shots need to be small home runs. I think one of the greatest mysteries in golf, I think universally, you could get, I think, an assent to this, that the people would say, yes, that's true. The biggest mystery in golf, I think, is distance with no effort. When you watch an Ernie Els, all the tour players, and when you go to those tour events and you come back, I hear all the time, I hear, I don't understand that. I don't understand, they didn't do anything. And they hit it forever. The ball just never comes down out of the air, it just stays there. I don't understand that. And you hear it when you're standing at the practice tee, watching a tour event. He's not doing anything. I can swing that fast. Yes, you can. You can swing that fast with the club, with the shaft. What they're doing is not only moving the shaft at a wonderful speed that's controllable, but they're also adding the home run to it when they hit it. And if you want to play as a check swing player, and there are a lot of people in the world today that will tell you you're not good enough to learn how to use the club face. I'm sorry, we're going to take that out of your hands. You're not talented enough to learn how to do the right thing with this lever. A golf club is a two-levered instrument. One of the levers is the shaft. The other lever is the club face. The secret of the club is in using the club face as an add-on to the tip of the shaft. And we get to use it. We get to use it as much as we want. It's awesome. You can actually swing the shaft at a slow speed and do bing, little home runs, and the ball just jumps off the club. And you go, wow, that was pretty easy. And when you begin to do that, you begin to see clearly that the magic is in the club. Now, I have had a lot of engineers. Do we have any engineers today? Okay, that's the first time. That's okay. Here's my point here is that as an engineer, it's an engineer's job normally, and they're sort of knee-jerk reflexive about this kind of thing, engineers are, and that is to simplify a system and eliminate moving parts so that you have the fewest number of moving parts to get the job done. That's their task. I mean, that's their mandate. When they go to work every day, how can I reduce the moving parts to this system to make it function more reliably? Well, what they've done with a golf club, and most of the engineers I talk to look at a golf club and say, well, I got to get rid of this. This flappy thing here, that doesn't do me any good. I got that. All that's going to do is cause me grief. I got to get rid of that. If I could just put the shaft in the center of the head, that would be better. Then I wouldn't have one of those things. But I'm going to give a different task out right now. What I'm going to say is to every engineer is to say, look, here's an engineering 101 problem. This is a tool. It has mechanical advantages built into it. Your task is to tell me how many mechanical advantages are built into this and how would I exploit them. And the answer is there are two major radial accelerators here. Now, a radial accelerator is easily explained by thinking of a fishing rod. And if I were going to cast a fishing rod, I wouldn't do this and say, I'm sorry, this fishing rod doesn't work, the bait doesn't get out there. Doesn't happen. We know that's how the bait gets out. And I can, by pulling back on this lever, the end of the lever, around a very short fulcrum point here, I can make the end of the lever up here, the end of the lever here, go a lot faster than my hands can move. That's a mechanical advantage. I now am able to launch the bait using the tip to make it go a lot farther than I can throw it. That's why I need it. Okay, now if I take the thing, the rod, and I do this, I'm moving the tip the same speed as I'm moving the handle, so I get no advantage. The two levers of the golf club are from the grip end down to the tip of the shaft, which is the heel, and I get to move the tip of the shaft faster than I do the handle. The other one, as it's moving past the ball, the other lever is the face, and I get to use the face like this as another radial accelerator to move the tip of the shaft, or move faster than the tip of the shaft as I move it forward. So now I have two things in this that are giving me a mechanical advantage. I don't have to have great hand speed. Lord knows I don't have it. My heater when I was a pitcher was like 57. I mean, it was just, and my foot speed was so bad that the 100 meters was a 2-day event. But, you know, I could finish, a little water, sit down a little while, finish the 100 meters. But you don't need to have great speed to play wonderful, satisfying golf. You don't need to. But you do need to understand how to exploit what's built into this tool. And I promise you that that sort of responsible adult perspective of saying, I have to get rid of the face. It's just too hard. I couldn't possibly learn to do it. And we know better here. We've seen it every day. We have ladies and gentlemen in their 80s over the years that I've taught to use the tool correctly, and their hands, believe it or not, are brilliant enough to learn it. Remember, the biggest part of your brain is right here and in your visual cortex. So it's your hands, eyes. That's where all your brains are. And I promise you that even though these elderly players who use the club correctly get these satisfying shots, certainly they don't hit it as far as you hit it. But they hit quality golf shots that jump and, believe it or not, have a little draw. So it's really cool. Now, we know then that the two things about the golf club that have to happen to use it correctly are that I have to have the handle in front of where the ball is before I hit it. And then as I move the tip of the shaft past the ball, I have to have the club face in a position, if it were a bat, that I could hit the home run and not hit it down the left field line all the time. Could I hit it, the home run, up over the pitcher's head or knock his cap off, as baseball players are fond of saying? Rip it right back through the bullpen, or through the pitcher's mound. Bam! Yes, you can do that. You can hit it to right field if you want to with the little bat. In fact, the first person that I gave this bat to, and it was my old standby bat, which, by the way, I call D-A-B-A-T, da bat. This is da bat. Well, I gave this fellow a bat. He was a baseball player. I gave him one of these little bats, and it was the first day I had it, so I didn't know how I was going to talk about it, but when he hit one that went to right field off the bat, he looked at me and said, I was late with the bat, wasn't I? I was late getting the bat around, late getting the bat. I said, yeah. And when I gave him a golf club then, and he hit the golf club, and it went to the right, he said, what happened there? I said, what do you mean what happened there? What happened when you had the bat in your hand? He went, well, I was late with the bat. Oh, I was late getting the face. The face and the bat are the same. Yes, now you got it. Okay, and if you understand that, we're going to go over here in a little while and we're going to hit some shots, and I'm going to do a demonstration with this bat that shows how you can use the anticipated moment of impact to figure out when to hit the little home run. Now, we've gone to, number one, which part of the ball to hit and how it flies. Number two, we know how the tool is designed to be used now, pretty clearly, right? You pretty much understand how the tool is made to be used. The third thing now is how the club face sits in your hand. And this is not obvious, but it is really, really important, really critical. So I'm going to draw this, and you all get the tattoo today. I'm going to draw the tattoo on your hand, okay? And the way it sits in your hand is this way. This is how the club face sits in the palm of your hand. It sits on the back of your other hand in the same way. That is the scoring lines moving across the face this way. So that when you look at the two together, they fit the same way on your hand. Now, if I take my normal grip and I simply pull the club back, you will notice that the club sits this way in the hand. But I have found that virtually everyone that hasn't had this bit of awareness given to them believes that the club face sits this way in the hand. When you hold your hand out this way, it feels like the toe of the club is here, the heel of the club is here, and the shaft is sticking out here. That's how it sits. And if I want to square the toe, I have to do this to square the toe. Well, the fact is, that's about 100 degrees off the mark. Now, if you have an intuition about something, and it happens to be 100 degrees off of reality, would you guess that some of the conclusions you come to will be wrong? And some of the things that you try to do with your hand probably won't work because you're only 100 degrees off. Well, that's not much. It's only everything. So now, with the club in your hand this way, do you remember I said we have 6 things you can do with your hand? Down is ulnar deviation, up is radial deviation, palmar flexion, dorsiflexion, pronation, supination. If I know that this motion is going to hit the little home run for me, that's the motion I have to use with my hand to hit the home run, not this motion. Because if I use my hand this way, I'm simply adding loft to the club. And you remember what happened when I added loft to the club. When I hit it, I can't hit it forward anywhere. My job is to actually de-loft the club at impact. So if I swing the club through here trying to get lots of speed and flip the tips of my fingers forward this way to add speed, all I'm doing is hitting it higher and shorter. In fact, if I want to hit the little home run to make the bat do this to hit the home run, I now have to do that motion that makes it happen. And so just as with our little ping pong paddle, this is the palm of my hand. Now I know how the club face sits in the palm of my hand. If I know which part of the ball to hit, and I know how the tool's designed and what I have to do, and I know how it sits in my hand and how it's oriented in my hand, if I bring my left hand down here, you'll notice it's the same. So if I know that these two motions, this supinated motion this way and this pronated motion that way, will hit the little home run, that's what I have to do. And believe it or not, You already know how to do that. And the reason you already know how to do this is because in human development, this isn't about golf, this is about human development. Those of you that have kids, you understand this. You've seen it happen over and over again. From birth to age 5 or 6 in that zone, gross motor development occurs. Gross motor development. Now, fine motor development happens alongside that, parallel to that at the same time. But the big thing that happens up to 5 or 6 is gross motor development. And at that point, the switch is turned off and we don't get to go back and develop new gross motor skills. And the reason it works that way, to use a computer phrase, is so that those gross motor programs work transparently in the background. So I never have to think about them again. When someone throws a ball just out here outside of my, I can reach over here and I use a bunch of big muscles to get there. How much did you have to think about those big muscles to get your hand over there? Not at all. And the reason you didn't have to was because all of those programs were done by the age of 5 or 6. It was over. If you're not Michael Jordan by then, you ain't going to be Michael Jordan. The great news, however, is you could be Larry Bird. Now let's face it, Larry never looked really athletic when he ran. And he didn't jump all that high. And when he came out of Indiana State, everybody said he'll never make it in the NBA, can't run, can't jump. Well, he fooled everybody. Why? Because he's an absolutely brilliant fine motor athlete, is he not? His fine motor skills. He can change the height of his shot with someone in his face by 7 or 8 feet and still hit nothing but the bottom of the net. Now, he couldn't do the running, jumping, gross motor things that Michael could do, but it didn't mean he didn't become a great player. And the good news is that once you're developed in this gross motor function, it's over. You can't go back and turn the switch on and do it. And the reason it's done that way is so we never have to think about those things again until somebody gives you a golf swing lesson. Then it's all about gross motor programs, big muscle stuff. Big muscles are gross motor. See, that's the same. Don't confuse this. Big muscle stuff is gross motor stuff. And we are not wired, no matter how badly you would like to go back and turn the switch back on and learn all these new motor programs so I could be Michael. It's not happening. As a matter of fact, if you get damaged or some trauma to your brain and it does some damage to your gross motor function, generally speaking, they will tend to take you back to the crawling stage in rehabilitation and try to get you back to patterning the walking and those, because the crawling stage that we all went through was a very important gross motor development time. It patterns a lot of what we do in terms of our walking. Left leg forward, left knee forward, right hand, right knee forward, left hand. That becomes left leg forward, right hand. And when you run, which in my case isn't very well, but when you run, you do those same things. And so, if you understand that the switch went off, that I don't care how badly you'd like to turn it on, you can't. So don't go there. Let's use the things that we were given, which is to say, the fine motor skills are there to be developed the rest of our lives. We can learn new motor programs for our fine motor skills because we got 42% of the brain or thereabouts attached to these things. And that's why. This is how we survive. And so we can learn. If you want to learn to play the piano at age 80, you know you can do it. You can actually do it. It might take you longer than when you were 20, but you can still learn it because you can learn these skills. You can't learn new motor programs for your big muscles, though. I don't care how smart you are. You can't. We're not wired to do it. So don't waste your time on those big muscle issues. Let's get to the business of understanding, number one, how the ball has to be hit. Number two, how the tool's designed to do that. And number three, how this sits in your hand. You remember the fourth thing we talked about at the beginning was you have to hit the ball with the club, not the swing. There's a ball, there's a club, there's hand-eye coordination. That's it. That's the magic. That's what makes it so easy to do. And I had a colleague years ago who since passed away, that 30 years ago when we talked about these issues, he said to me, you know, this was a golf professional teacher, he said, I buy what you're saying except for one thing. If it was that easy to do, everybody'd be doing it. I said, boy, you know, you have me there. It is that easy to do. Why isn't everybody doing it? Because it is that easy. And we're going to go over to the demonstration area here. We're going to hit some shots. We're going to talk about this. And you're going to see that you don't have to be a perfect physical specimen. Lord knows, you don't have to be a perfect physical specimen to do this. And you can do it at a very high level of skill. And you can play really good golf. And the more you practice, the better you get. Have you ever done any skill or any activity where the harder you worked at it, the worse you got? Only in golf. And would you go somewhere and spend money to take lessons and accept getting worse? It just drives me crazy, but it happens all the time in this game. I have had otherwise reasonable people say to me, one doctor told me one time, he said, look, I can hit the ball, take the club, hit it. Look, see, I can hit it. My joy is in diagnosing all of the parts of the body that are moving when I do that. Fine. That's what it means to you. Do that. But don't complain that you can't play better, because knowing that doesn't make you play better. Remember, that computer that runs all of your motor stuff runs at a very high clock speed. And the one that allows you to think and understand and have great cognition runs at a very slow clock speed. Remember, the 4 things we talked about. Number 1, which part of the ball you have to hit. Number 2, how the tool's designed to be used. Number 3, how the tool sits in your hand so that you can use the business end correctly. And number 4, you have to hit the ball with a golf club, not a golf swing.
The Golf Agency.